I'm mad. I'm crazy. We've all said it. Usually about nothing. A bad day, a stupid decision, a moment we can't explain. But what if we meant it? What if something arrived you couldn't explain or dismiss, or you couldn't make anyone else see? Something that felt more real than anything that came before. Would that be madness? Or would it be something else entirely? Before we start, this is where it happens. This office, this chair, the same every night. No audience, no performance, just the work. The kind that shapes you, quietly, in private, over years. Every man has a corner, and this is mine. That's why I partnered with Gentlebands for this video. They make men's rings from unconventional materials. Meteorite, Damascus steel, dinosaur fossil, carbon fibre, whiskey barrel wood, titanium. Objects that stop feeling like accessories after a while and start feeling like anchors. Things that carry a story with them. I like asking questions, exploring mythology, religion, folklore, the strange edges of the human experience, following ideas all the way down the rabbit hole wherever they lead, even when the answer becomes uncomfortable. And that's why I chose a black panther, tungsten and meteorite. There's something fitting about wearing a material that literally came from beyond the world we know while making videos about things people have always believed arrived from beyond it too. This meteorite travelled through space for billions of years before it hit Earth. Older than civilization, older than every empire, older than every prophet, every story we've told to explain the things that arrive in the dark. For a video about revelation, madness, and the terrifying possibility that the line between the two has never been as stable as we pretend, that felt strangely appropriate. You can also engrave something inside the band at no extra cost. A word, a sigil, a date, a coordinate, something that belongs entirely to you, seen by nobody else. Use code Pantheon25 at checkout or click the link in the description to save 25%. Now, let's get into it. 593 BC. A priest named Ezekiel is sitting by the Kebar River in Babylon, exiled. 30 years old. Cut off from the temple he was born to serve. The sky opens. What follows in the book that bears his name has never been satisfactorily explained. A storm from the north, fire folding in on itself. 4 living creatures inside the fire, each with 4 faces: man, lion, ox, eagle. Beside each creature, a wheel. Inside each wheel, another wheel. The rims covered entirely in eyes, the whole structure moving without turning, going in any direction instantly, one spirit animating everything simultaneously. He fell on his face. A voice told him to stand. He stood. The voice told him to eat a scroll, so he did. It tasted of honey. Then it was gone. Ezekiel spent the rest of his life in service to what arrived that day. He lay on his left side for 390 days because he was told to. He shaved his head and divided the hair into thirds and burned one portion and scattered another to the wind because he was told to. He did not mourn when his wife died because he was told not to. The vision that arrived by the Kebar River shaped every remaining day of his existence. Was it the gift or the curse? In 1765, a boy named William Blake was walking alone across Peckham Rye on the outskirts of London. He was 8 years old. He looked up at a tree and saw it filled with angels, bright angelic winds bespangling every bough like the stars. He went home and told his father. His father raised his hand to strike him for lying. His mother intervened. He had been seeing things since he was 4 years old. At 4 years old, he had seen the prophet Ezekiel himself standing under a tree. He would spend the rest of his life seeing things no one else could see. His dead brother's spirit rising through the bedroom ceiling, clapping its hands for joy, presences that arrived without warning and departed the same way. He never treated any of it as a metaphor. The angels were simply there. To call them anything else would have been, for Blake, a lie. He died in poverty, largely ignored, widely considered mad. He left behind one of the most complete and internally consistent private mythologies ever built by a single human mind. Work that the following century would recognize as among the greatest in the English language. Was that the gift or the curse? The answer in both cases is yes. A 19-year-old girl is brought into a courtroom and asked to swear an oath on the Bible. She refuses to swear absolutely. She will tell the truth about her family, her faith, everything she has done, but she will not swear to reveal everything about her visions. Her voices, she says, have forbidden it. The room decides immediately what this means. Her name is Jeanne d'Arc. The English call her Joan of Arc. She is a peasant girl from Domremy, who at the age of 13 began hearing voices. St. Catherine, St. Margaret, the Archangel Michael, they came to her first in her father's garden, accompanied by a great light. They told her to go to the King of France, to raise the siege of Orleans, to drive the English from French soil. She did all of it. She led armies. She turned the course of a war. She stood beside the king at his coronation. Then she was captured, sold to the English for 10,000 livres, and brought to this room. The trial lasted months. The transcript survives in full. 70 articles of accusation, dozens of interrogations, the most learned theologians in France asking the question they had spent their lives preparing to answer: whether a voice from beyond was divine or demonic. They asked her how she knew the voices were saints and not devils. She said she knew by their fruits, by what they had told her to do and what had come from it. They asked her whether St. Michael appeared to her naked. She said she supposed God could clothe his angels. They asked her whether she would submit her revelations to the judgment of the Church. She said she submitted to God first, the Church second. In the courtroom, the noise was frequently so overwhelming, she told them she could not hear the voices above it. She said this plainly, as a practical problem. The room that was deciding whether her voices were real made so much noise she couldn't receive them. On the 30th of May, 1431, Joan of Arc was burned alive in the marketplace at Rouen. The voices she heard were declared the work of the devil. 25 years later, the church reopened the case. 115 witnesses were questioned. The verdict was reversed. The voices were declared divine. In 1920, she was canonized as a saint. Same voices, same visions, same girl, different room. The world said yes to some of them. The voices were real, the visions were divine. The church examined the evidence, questioned the witnesses, deliberated for years, and arrived at a verdict. Yes, what arrived was holy, and it destroyed them anyway. Teresa of Avila did not want what arrived. She was a Carmelite nun in 16th century Spain, the daughter of a converso family, a woman who had entered the convent at 20 and spent her first years there in comfortable, unremarkable piety, and then, in her 40s, something changed. The visions began, then the voices, and something else. During prayer, during Mass, sometimes in front of the entire community, her body would leave the ground. She hated it. This is documented in her own words in the autobiography she was ordered to write so the church could examine her prayer life and decided what she was. She tried to fight the levitations. She clung to the grill in the choir, greatly distressed, begging God out loud, "Lord, for something as unimportant as putting an end to these favours, do not allow a woman as wicked as me to be mistaken for one that is good." She would signal the other nuns to pull her and drag her back down. She rose into the air with the choir mat still in her hands from trying to hold herself to the floor. A Dominican theologian named Domingo Banet, one of the most respected scholars in Spain, witnessed it. He said so in writing. Many others witnessed it. They said so in writing. The Inquisition examined her. Theologians debated her. Her confessors argued over whether her experiences were divine, diabolical, or simply the hysteria of an overwrought woman. The same institution that had burned Joan of Arc 20 years before Teresa was born now, sat in judgment of another woman who heard voices and experienced things nobody could explain. They decided she was holy. In 1622 she was canonized. In 1970 she became the first woman declared a Doctor of the Church, recognized for the depth and importance of her theological contribution. The yes came, eventually, after years of examination, years of defending what arrived against the people with the power to destroy her for it. And still, she had spent decades rising toward the ceiling of a church, begging God to stop, clinging to the floor with both hands. The gift and the curse, together, inseparable. That is what the yes actually looked like from the inside. There is a city that cannot be found, a king who cannot be seen, a play that was never performed, and yet somehow anyone who reads it loses their mind. Not in the way we usually mean, not raving or incoherent. The mind doesn't shatter, it reorganizes, quietly and completely, around something that isn't true. And from the inside it feels like clarity, like finally understanding something everyone else has missed, like a fog lifting that you never knew was there. That is what makes it so dangerous. The madness looks like sanity, feels like sanity. The person who has read the second act is certain, more certain than they have ever been about anything. The city of Carcosa sits at the shore of Lake Haley, where black stars hang in a sky that has no business containing them. The shadows of men's thoughts lengthen in the afternoon until the men themselves are gone and only the shadows remain. Somewhere in the city the king moves in yellow tatters, his face hidden behind the pallid mask, white, smooth, and featureless. At one point in the play a character tells him he should unmask. He says, "I wear no mask." He looks at his face. The play has two acts. The first act is survivable, a creeping unease that most people mistake for ordinary strangeness. They put it down. They go about their lives. They think they have left it behind. But they carry it with them. They simply have not yet felt the weight. One account describes catching a glimpse of the opening words of the second act by accident. Just the first words. The account says, with a cry of terror, or perhaps it was joy so poignant that I suffered it in every nerve, I snatched the thing and crept shaking to my bedroom, where I read it and reread it, and wept and laughed and trembled with a horror which at times assails me yet. Terror or joy, he cannot tell the difference. This is what Robert W. Chambers understood when he wrote The King in Yellow, and Lovecraft built on it. That the church and the courts and every institution that had ever sat in judgment over a human mind did not. The madness doesn't always arrive from the outside, doesn't always announce itself with fire or voices or the overwhelming presence of something vast and close. Sometimes it's already in the words, already in the knowledge that cannot be unknowed once it has been known. Every person in this video had something waiting on the other side of what arrived. The gift underneath the curse, the meaning that made the destruction bearable. The second act has nothing waiting on the other side, just a door, and what comes through it, and the Lake of Haley, and the black stars, and the shadows of your thoughts lengthening in the wrong light, and the absolute, total, unshakable certainty that you are finally seeing clearly. Some doors don't have a gift on the other side. That is the darkest thing that this video has to say. And Carcosa is where we have always kept it. Madness. Gift, curse, both. It doesn't matter. Not because the question isn't real, it is. It has been real for every person in this video and every person who ever lived inside an experience the world had no name for. But because the gift and the curse have never been separable. They are the one thing that we split into two because we couldn't bear to hold it whole. We gave the gift a name. Prophecy, revelation, divine grace. We built cathedrals on it, we canonized it, we made it safe by making it holy. We gave the curse a name too. Madness, heresy, disorder. We burned it, we locked it away, we medicated it into silence. Same experience, two names. One line drawn between them, by our hands, in our rooms, in our time. But the experience itself never knew the difference. That is what Carcosa understood. That is what the second act contains and the first act doesn't. Just the thing itself, undivided, without the comfort of a label, the gift and the curse as one, held whole, for as long as the mind can bear it, which is never very long. This is the gift and the curse of madness, not that it destroys some and elevates others, not that the wrong people were burned and the right people were canonized, but that the burning and the canonization were always the same fire. And somewhere, in every century, in every culture, in every room where someone sat across from someone else and tried to decide what they were, the experience just kept arriving, unbidden, unnamed, whole. The only difference between a prophet and a madman is whether anyone believed them.